Did you know there are more than 3 million cases of domestic violence reported every year? The worst part is that a whole bunch more go unreported. What a lot of people don't know is that emotional abuse is often a precursor to actual physical abuse. But a lot of people don't discuss that. And whether or not you know this, both men and women emotionally and physically abuse people. So this video is for you if you're concerned that you may be dealing with verbal or emotional abuse. We're going to talk about what it looks like. What are the signs, the red flags of verbal and emotional abuse? So let's get started. My name is Angie Atkinson, and on this channel I offer free daily video coaching to help you discover, understand, and overcome narcissistic abuse in toxic relationships. I like to call it toxic relationship rehab. So if that sounds good to you, hit that subscribe button and we'll get going. Emotional abuse is very subtle. It's hard to recognize. Part of the reason that it's so hard to recognize is that the abuser very often blames the victim. It's their fault they're being abused. What? I know, it's true. Stick with me. A lot of times they'll act like they have no idea why you're so upset. Wait, what's the big deal? I just told you the truth. And if you were raised by someone who was also an emotional abuser, or you've been in other relationships with people who were emotional abusers, you might not even recognize it as abuse. I know I didn't. Because it's harder to recognize, it's easier for the abuser to chip away at your self-esteem and tear you down bit by bit. The hard part about that is that sometimes the abuser is very nice to you in between episodes. There are certain times when you find yourself feeling perfectly happy and loved in the relationship. But then there are other times when you know you need to go. You feel miserable, you feel like I can't believe my spouse or loved one would treat me this way. And the fact is that if you never had a healthy relationship, you probably don't even know exactly what you're looking for. There are no witnesses who watch you be abused in some cases, or it's your own children or something like that. So a lot of times you don't even fully get it because no one who knows better is around when it happens. In public, your abuser might be perfectly awesome and everybody's like, oh, I wish I had a person like that. But in private, it's a whole other story. Sound familiar? If so, keep watching. So let's talk about the personality of an abuser. Well, the first thing you have to know is that an abuser is going to be a little controlling. Whether they're doing that publicly or just privately behind closed doors, they're going to want to control you in a lot of ways. They're going to want to be the dominant person in the relationship, and the relationship should revolve around them if you ask them. Well, this is often accomplished by the abuser using verbal abuse. So they're really impatient people. They're self-centered, they're controlling, unforgiving, insensitive, unreasonable, and they lack empathy. They're often jealous, suspicious, and they withhold stuff or things or intimacy or whatever that it is that you want or need from them in order to get what they want from you. In order to maintain control of you, the abuser may isolate you or separate you from your friends and your family. You may not even have noticed that it happened, but take a moment and think, did I used to have more people in my life than I do right now? And if you say the answer is yes, then you can't come up with a logical reason, like they passed away or you moved, then maybe there's something to think about here. Maybe you are in an abusive relationship. The abuser does this in order to isolate you and pull you away from your family and your friends. So they might also have mood shifts. They might find themselves, you might find yourself dealing with a happy-go-lucky, awesome person one minute and then angry and sullen the next minute. And you might not even know why the mood shift happened. They sometimes punish you with anger, and they sometimes punish you by just shutting down and being quiet. The silent treatment, you heard of that? Yeah. And with most abusers, it's usually my way or the highway. If you don't do what they want, you might as well just leave, and they'll threaten constantly your security in the relationship. You won't be allowed to feel comfortable. You won't be allowed to get, to move all the way in, so to speak, even if you've been with them for 30 years. They'll always be threatening your connection in some cases. When you first get with an abuser, it doesn't usually start the first few days or few months. Sometimes they wait a while because they want to make sure you're not going to leave, and they start slow and subtly, right? They sneak it in on you, and if you don't leave, they go, oh, and they take it up one more level, right? Maybe they cross boundary after boundary, and the more you stay, the more they throw on you, the more they heap on you as far as the abuse goes. In some cases, it might not happen until one of you is pregnant, or until you're married or engaged or whatever, moving in together. Before you know it, you're going to find yourself walking on eggshells. That's when you know for sure. And what I mean by that is constantly worrying about what the abuser or the person thinks, says, or feels, or how they will react to something that you have done, or thought, or felt, or said. Pretty soon, you and everybody in your family is worrying about what the abuser thinks or feels and moving toward changing yourselves and your behaviors in order to make that okay. And that's a miserable way for anyone to live. You might find yourself being depressed or angry, having a reduced intimacy drive, dealing with chronic pain or other physical symptoms. You might find yourself with a real serious case of CPTSD. And a lot of people are going to tell you, oh, you put up with it, it's your own fault. Well, that's not true. Here's the thing that a lot of people don't recognize. They'll tell you, oh, if you were strong, you wouldn't put up with that. Oh, if you had, any self-respect at all, you would never have tolerated that. Well, that's because they don't understand what you're dealing with. The fact of the matter is, it's not like you walked into that relationship and everything was terrible, because if that was the case, you would have walked out. What happens is, and Dana Morningstar talks about this, I've talked about it before, the boiling frog factor, right? You put a frog in a pot full of warm water, it's cool, it's swimming around, everything's fine, it gets a little warm, it feels pretty good about it, it's all right. Pretty soon it's kind of hot, but the water kind of heated up slowly, and before the frog knows it, it's boiling. It's the same deal with an abuser. Emotional abusers are sneaky and subtle, and they push you beyond the point that they could over time. You couldn't just walk into this relationship and be like, everything's terrible, well, I'm going to leave. Of course you're going to leave. But people assume that you don't respect, or you never respected yourself, or you don't have any self-respect because you stay with an abuser. But that's because the abuser slowly brought the abuse in, like that boiling frog had the water heated up slowly, right? It just kind of comes up around you, and before you know it, oh my gosh, everything's crazy, you're walking on eggshells, you're scared of your partner. I understand. This is what I have gone through. This is what a lot of my viewers have gone through. If you're one of those people, hit the subscribe button. Stick with me. We do toxic relationship rehab here. I'll help you bring your self-esteem back. I'll help you with your day-to-day issues. You can come into my live chats in the mornings, watch the videos. This is the channel for you if you think you're dealing with emotional abuse. Tip from me to you. If you think you might be in an emotionally abusive relationship, chances are that you are in that relationship. Emotional abuse is different than physical abuse. Physical abuse might involve some really obvious things like shoving or pushing or smacking or any physical attack whatsoever. Emotional abuse is so much sneakier. It might involve just simple speech that is derogatory or controlling or punishing or just rude. Manipulation. It might involve, withholding of love and affection or money or stuff, support. It's sort of an indirect way for them to control you, or a direct way depending on the situation. If you are controlled by emotion or by direct control about where you go, who you see, what you do, who you talk to, what's abusive, you might be in a toxic abusive relationship. So for example, if you decide, look, I'm going to redecorate the kitchen, and you go and you buy a new dishwasher, and then your spouse says to you, oh, now that you bought that new dishwasher, we're not going to be able to afford vacation. That's not necessarily toxic. But if they then take the credit card away, chop it up into a billion pieces, and burn it, well, that might be a toxic abuser. You see what I'm saying? So normal discussions that, oh, well, now darn, we can't afford to go on vacation, big deal. But if they come in at you and they, oh, you've ruined our whole lives, now we can't go, to the Ozarks for the weekend or whatever, and they chop up your credit card and they never let you have money again, problem. You see what I'm saying? So think about the extreme stuff. If the person is spying on you, if they stalk you when you leave the house, if they follow you around, any of that stuff, definitely a red flag. Verbal abuse is probably the most common form of emotional abuse, but there are so many other forms to consider as well. So keep that in mind as you're moving forward. If you need to know more about being emotionally abused or dealing with toxic people, I'm going to share with you some links above and some links in the description below, and maybe you can get some extra help. If you think you're dealing with someone who's narcissistic or has narcissistic personality disorder, check out those links below as well, because they'll help you understand a little better. Now it's time for the question of the day. And the question of the day is, do you think you're dealing with emotional abuse? And if so, what are you going to do about it? Share your thoughts, your ideas, your experiences, and your comments below, and let's talk about it. That's all I've got for you right now. As always, thank you so much for being a part of my day and a part of my life. And hey, thanks for letting me be a part of yours. It really does mean a lot to me. I'll see you soon. It's my mission to teach others what I know to be true. You really can create the life you want. Take care of your body, take care of your soul, nurture the real you, and introduce him or her to the world. Be comfortable in your own skin and in your place in this world. Take your spot, take it now, and the universe will take its cue from you. You feel me? If so, subscribe to my channel. Let's get it done together.